Hey guys, it's Maria. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. I post videos every single Thursday, so if you don't want to miss another upload, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Today's video has been long awaited, and that's the update to the memory hacks video, the two-part series I came out with last year. Honestly, very cringy stuff, but if you want to go ahead and watch last year's videos, I'm going to be linking them up here. But as I'm sure all of you know, people grow, people evolve, change, up their game, hopefully, as long as you're practicing. I feel like I've upped mine. And so here's an updated two-part series, just like last time, memorization hacks. So where I'm giving you 5 in this video, 5 in the next one. And I just want to start this video off with a disclaimer saying that these memorization hacks are what has worked for me and what I continue to use. Everybody has to figure out their own way of memorization. Everybody's mind is different, body is different, brain is different, hands are different, everything is different. So you have to figure out what works for you. Don't take these literally necessarily, but rather you can use this video as a way to supplement your already existing memorization strategies. With that being said, let's get into part 1 of memorization hacks. So tip number 1 is to start memorizing your piece before you're ready, aka while you're learning the piece. And this was a tip that was given to me many years in a row before I actually started implementing it. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that, but as a fellow sight reader, my fellow sight readers, please let yourselves be known in the comments. We want to keep the score near and dear to us, as close as possible, for as long as possible, and will not let it go unless we absolutely have to. We really want to just look in the score. It gives us security, confidence. We know we will never have a memory slip and make way less mistakes than trying to play it without the score unless we're ready to do that. But starting to memorize as you're learning and breaking away from the score before you've even had a chance to solidify that dependency on it is a fantastic way to start your memorization journey. A lot of people do this already as it is because they don't like sight reading. They'd rather just memorize it and get rid of the score altogether. There are pros and cons to both approaches, but in my opinion, having the best of both worlds, having the score there, but also the opportunity to break away from it, kind of giving yourself a chance to flap your wings before you actually have to get kicked out of the nest, is a great way to start. A lot of the time when you have difficult passages with lots of leaps or lots of fast notes, maybe a difficult page turn, you are kind of forced to memorize because there's no way you can play that part of the piece without having it memorized. So work on translating that into some of the easier spots as well. Because as a general rule, your conception of the piece changes depending on what stage of learning you are on. So you start off learning a piece maybe just by having it in your head, remembering what you heard from recordings, already kind of having a vision of what you want it to sound like when you play it. Then you move on to the stage where you remember the piece based on what it looks like in the score, maybe what it feels like in your hands. Then you move on to actually memorizing the piece if that's what's required, and you think of the piece in terms of what it looks like when you're looking down at your hands at the keyboard. And so as you'll see in this video, it's very, very helpful to start incorporating all 3 of those aspects into memorizing from the very beginning. My next point is to memorize in phases. And I may or may not have mentioned before that memorization is not my favorite pastime. It's not my favorite thing to do by any stretch of the imagination. So instead of cramming it at the very last minute, which is possibly worse than memorizing like a normal person, I like to spread it out very thinly over a long period of time, which means I have to memorize in phases. Let me explain. So first, I like to go through my whole piece and write in keywords for every single section of the piece, any little fragment that I might have trouble memorizing or that I need to memorize. And I did touch on keywords in my previous 2 memorization videos, which again will be linked in the description if you want to watch them. I can also go back and explain my current take on them if you guys want. Let me know in the comments. But essentially what it is putting the music into words. So starting from the beginning, starting from the end, from the middle, the order really doesn't matter in this case, but go through each section of your piece very carefully and write down keywords that will help you remember. For example, if there's a D major chord in your right hand and that's the main building block of the entire section, you would want to write that. Maybe the fingering pattern, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Write all that down because believe me, there is no way you're going to remember every single keyword, especially for a longer piece. So write all of it down and then set the piece aside and try to play it from the beginning to the end without stopping. I'm going to talk about the importance of recording yourself as you're memorizing in my next point, but the main thing here is not to try to memorize everything in one go. So I usually go through at least 3 phases, sometimes even 5 phases of these keywords before I feel comfortable. So essentially, as you move through the different phases of memorization, keywords, record yourself, keywords, record yourself, keywords, record yourself, you're gonna be just shedding the extra keywords that you don't need and just leaving the golden nuggets, the absolute essentials that help you get through the piece without having any memory slips. And again, this isn't something you can do in 2 minutes or even a few days. This takes me a few weeks at least, and like I said before, I really don't like memorizing, so I'd rather take a longer time to do it, which in turn helps me be more solid in my memory, have less memory slips, which is good. I'll be getting into this more in part 2, but this is also going to help you immensely in mental practice. When you put the music to words, you actually give yourself a different way of memorizing. Now you can step away from the piano if you're waiting for the bus, if you're, I don't know, at home or you don't have access to a piano, you can memorize by memorizing the sequence of the keywords, the order of the keywords that you came up with without necessarily having to practice at the piano. My next point is don't be afraid to print and photocopy fresh copies of your score many, many times. Now, I'm all for having your own books to write in. That's fantastic. Having pieces of paper flying around, not in a binder, disorganized. I've had students have that. I've had my peers struggle through that. It's not pretty. So I'm all for having your own books. However, for somebody like me who really writes a lot of fingerings, markings from my teacher, and memorization keywords, as I just mentioned, in my score, a lot of the time it helps to have a fresh new look at the piece every so often. And with an app like Fourscore on an iPad or anything you're using, it makes it super easy. You can always save that PDF with the annotations as they are, then proceed to either make them invisible or delete them altogether and start fresh. But whichever way you decide to do it, trust me, it really, really helps have a fresh, clean, new look at the piece with no old markings and kind of start anew by printing a new photocopy of your piece. And you'll notice a lot of my points go hand in hand, and in this case, after you're done coming up with your keywords, putting your music to words, and you're going through those phases of decluttering your keywords, getting rid of the extra ones. You might feel a little sentimental towards them, worried about whether or not you'll need them in the future if you throw them out now or erase them now, never to be found again. So it's always good to have multiple copies of your piece throughout your different stages of learning it. So I would probably say the right time to print a new score is when you can't really see the notes anymore, at least comfortably, when there are too many markings, too many fingerings, too many teacher corrections, self-corrections, that you really cannot decipher the notes in between all the writing. That's kind of your sign to get a fresh new score. Sorry guys, my camera just died, so I had to put in a new battery, but we're back. Okay, so my 4th tip is to record yourself, and I have already mentioned this in this video. So my usual order of events goes, I make up my keywords, way too many of them. This takes a few days, especially if it's a longer piece or a more confusing piece. Maybe a modern piece will take a little bit longer than a classical piece or Baroque piece. Then I turn on the recording and try to make it through the entire piece, even if I have not completely memorized it or completely feel comfortable playing it. I try to make it best I can through the piece, dead or alive. And then I go back and actually listen to the recording. So many people record themselves and they think that's it. They don't actually go back and listen to the recording, which is like, why did you record yourself if you're not gonna go listen back to it? A lot of learning comes from being that outside person, because while you're playing, your mind is busy trying to remember all the notes, remember all the things that you're supposed to do. When you actually take a step back from yourself playing and listen to a recording, you can learn so much. And there's so many memes and jokes people make about the fact that they would rather, you know, do literally anything in the world than listen to their own voice or listen to a recording of them playing. But I find that most of the time those people, well, first of all, obviously don't do it on the reg, and usually when they do end up listening to themselves, it's to a recording of their performance or an exam or a competition when it's really too late to make those criticisms and self-adjustments. So a lot of the people who say they hate listening to themselves really have not done it from the very beginning. They listen to themselves when it's already too late, when you've already performed, and then you go back and you obviously don't want to listen to all the mistakes that could have been fixed if you had only recorded yourself at an earlier stage in your preparation for this performance. So really, I can't stress this enough. It's really, really important to record yourself, not only for memorization purposes, but also for musicality, for literally anything. It's always a good idea to listen back to what you're playing, because if you don't like to listen to what your recording or your performance sounds like, imagine what the audience feels. Do you think they enjoy what you're playing? So make sure that what you're putting out is indeed what you mean to put out to the best of your ability. Try to record yourself as much as possible, especially when it comes to memorizing a piece. And the final tip I'm going to give you today is to listen to the piece in your downtime. Listen to it when you're driving to school, driving to work, waiting for the bus, doing chores around the house. Get it in your mind. At least memorize it in the mental way. At least remember what it sounds like so you can sing it back to yourself whenever, wherever. And before people tell me that that's a terrible idea, that listening to different recordings stifles your personal growth, that you should only listen to recordings when you've fully finished a piece and you have your shaping and your phrasing and all your musical decisions set in stone, let me just say that listening to a recording is not always strictly to figure out what musical decisions you want to make. First of all, when has it ever been a bad idea to learn from the greats? In most cases, in most pieces, classical pieces especially, that you are currently learning, there have been at least a handful of extremely talented and fantastic musicians that have played it before you. And they did a pretty darn good job. So why don't you want to listen to their recording and learn from it? In the end, the more recordings you listen to, the better, because you're going to have a broader understanding of what others have done to this piece, and in turn, what you want to bring to the table, what differences you want to make in your performance. But all that aside, listening to a performance of a concert pianist or anybody, your favorite performer, playing your piece before you're actually at the tempo where you can perform it for yourself can be so invaluable, because it helps you see the structure of the piece, see the bigger picture, because it can be hard to see the bigger picture when you're going so slowly, which it's inevitable. When you're starting a piece, when you're starting to learn, you're gonna start slow. In fact, that's the only way you should be starting to learn a piece, is slowly. And so to supplement that with a bigger, broader understanding of the piece as a whole can only be a good thing. So those are all the memory hacks we have time for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stick around for part 2 because that's gonna be uploaded next. Don't forget to leave a comment below with your favorite memory hack, or if you have any questions about what I mentioned in this video, please don't hesitate to comment them down below. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and if you want to watch some more of my videos, you can do that right here. And I'll see you guys next Thursday. Bye!